I'm back. This is a scary scenario for me because I was halfway through the winterization. This is what I'm doing to the customer ski, is I'm winterizing it, and I started it, run the water through it, got the motor good and warm so I could pull the oil out of it. And I will show you later what I rigged up to extract the oil of the crankcase. So, got the oil out, and I went to go try to get the filter off, and there's absolutely no room in there to get the filter. I'll show you the picture here in a little bit. And what I tried to do was with these tools over here. First thing I tried to do was I got one of these sockets, and they don't work. The first one, I went in and it spun off the top of the filter, and it dropped down the bottom of the ski. I can't even see it. And then I put these heavy-duty channel locks on there, and I got a pretty good bite on the filter, and it still would not come loose. And then I went down to Advanced Auto Parts and got this small oil filter, got it down to the base, and all it did was just slip on the outside of the oil filter. I will show you what the oil filter looks like. It's very small. Very small. It's exactly 2.5 inches. So, you know, the next size oil filter down from standard won't work. You got to get the small one that'll compress below 2.5. Anyway, I spent 2 days trying to get tools. Still can't get it budged. So here's the next piece of advice. So this is really scary because it got really cold here. You can see the cloudiness, and it got down into the 20s, and I couldn't start the ski because I got no oil in there, and I couldn't pump any antifreeze in there. And so I'm going to give you the best piece of advice. If you ever have a ski or boat that's broke down and you got water in the block, can't get it out, but this has got water in the block, it's got water in exhaust manifolds, there's water in the heads. I mean, all it takes is one hard freeze, and there goes your motor. So this is what you guys do. You get a light, you get a drop light, and you drop it in there and just leave it on. If it gets super cold, it may or may not save your motor, but it's better than nothing. When you got an engine full of water, you know, and block and exhaust manifolds, I mean, this is the next best thing. And you can't get a block heater on it, the magnetic kind, because it's all aluminum. So I thought about that, but it's all aluminum. There's no place to stick the block heater. So in a pinch, get a drop light with the hottest bulb you can get, and just make sure you drop the seat down. Drop the seat down over here. Keep the heat in there. Luckily, I think we only had one night where it got down to the 20s. So anyway, I contacted the customer, and what I'm going to do is pull the upper plenum. I'm sure this is going to be a real job because there's hardly no room in there, but I cannot get to the oil filter. Okay, I got this other light. Hopefully I'm going to shine it down in there. And if you look right there, you can see a little bit of the oil filter. That's how much of a bitch it is. That is the reason these jet skis are so expensive to get worked on. I am not a jet ski mechanic. I'm a marine mechanic, an automotive mechanic. So if I do something wrong, you know, don't jump me, guys, okay? I'm learning like everybody else here. I consider myself a professional. I want to do this customer a really good job and do it right. I'm not going to cut corners. And however long it takes me, I'm not going to charge her any extra, you know, from what I quoted her. So Anyway, that's where we're at, and what I'm going to do, I've never done it before, but this upper plenum needs to be pulled off, and I've never done one, so I'm not going to do step by step. All you can see where the nuts and bolts are at. I'm just going to carefully start pulling stuff apart. I worked on injection systems before on cars, so I'm familiar with injections systems and computer systems, so stick with me, and we'll see how this goes. Okay, it's the following day. I finally got a decent night's sleep and I feel well refreshed. If you're ever going to tackle a project like this and you haven't done the work before, I would strongly suggest that you just sit down with a chair, look it over, look at what you need to remove and the space you have to remove it. So I was looking at this plenum last night, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to come through the top. I mean, you can look at the space here, you can look at the bottom, and it's just not wide enough. Take your time, analyze stuff. So I looked in the back, and one thing I want to make sure, always disconnect your battery. I haven't disconnected the battery yet because I haven't tore this thing apart, but I got looking at this air box, and it looks like I'm going to be able to remove the air box and then come in from behind and pull the manifold out the back. So that's my game plan. But I'm not going to do a step-by-step, bolt by bolt, because honestly, I don't know what I'm doing. I've just got to figure it out. But I will, when I remove sections, I will show you what I did. So just bear with me, and we'll carry on here. Okay, next we're going to have to start getting the plenum ready to pull off. So I would highly recommend that you pull a fuel rail and take the hoses off, because you don't want to break one of these injectors. So that's really important. And first thing we're going to do is disconnect the throttle cable. So that'll be next, and then I'm going to start disconnecting the injectors and the harness. And just be careful, take your time. Anyway, before you pull a fuel rail, those seals are going to be awfully dry, and I want to damage the seals. So get a little WD-40, give them a shot, let it soak while you're pulling the intake. Save those seals. Okay. The hoses for the fuel rail, if you look, they're right against the frame of the inside of the housing of the jet ski, and you probably are not going to have the room to pull it back. So what I'm going to do, pull the fuel rails up and up, and then pull the fuel lines up. So don't sit there and fight it, because that's all you're going to do. You're going to fight it and you might damage something. So pull the fuel rail up and then disconnect your hoses when you got the room. There's 2 bolts holding the fuel rail down. I've heard something go crashing on the bottom. I don't know what I lost, but I must have been maybe a washer down here. But as you can see, there's enough slack in it to get everything loose. You know, your plug-ins for your injectors, all your plug-ins here, your hoses. So don't fight it. Just pull the fuel rails, and they came right out. The fuel rail came right out after I removed the 2 bolts. So you know, it's just a no-brainer. Okay, so fuel rail's out. I've got 1 hose on there. One thing I had to do when I pulled this hose off on the lower fuel rail, I had fuel come out. And make sure that you come over here before you do this and vent your cap, because it develops pressure in there. It's a sealed unit, so make sure you pull your cap off, relieve your pressure. And then the best thing to pinch these lines off is these needle nose vice grips that are ideal for pinching these off. I've got another pair here, I just got to find it. or in a pinch, you can use a good pair of, just forgot the name of them, but anyway, surgical tools to pinch them off. But I really prefer these because you get better jaw pressure with them. And keep paper towels by you because you're going to have fuel leaks. So make sure you clean up your fuel spills before you do any more work, because we definitely don't want any fires. Okay, so remember I told you I'm going to pull that air box out? I was really shocked how easy it was to pull out. You know, years ago I worked on a Yamaha wave runner and it was tight, 2-stroke, pain in the butt. But pretty cool how they set this up. You got this bracket that goes underneath here, and they took the time of tack welding the square nuts on the bottom, so you don't have to put a wrench in there. I was like half an hour trying to get a wrench. So basically, the air box goes in like this. What you do is you remove the upper, oh, there's the mounting holes right there. Remove the upper bracket, remove these 2 bolts. Then you've got your hose there with a clamp on it. 2 bolts, 4 bolts out. Unhook the clamp. Pull the box back, and you can't pull it out this way. You got to turn it sideways, and it comes right out the top. So kudos to Kawasaki. Yeah, I'm impressed, and you can see how much room that gives me right there. So I'm gonna go take a break. I just had pneumonia about 3 weeks ago, and I'm still feeling effects, but I'm feeling a lot better. So I'll keep you posted. Okay, oh wait, I'm gonna shut this video off. Okay, I know it's going to be upside down, but I noticed ECM, starter solenoid, and all the rest of the electronics are here, and that plenum's going to hit it. So I'm going to disconnect it. So you've got 3 Phillips holding the bracket for the ECM. The whole thing will drop down. So then hopefully I'll have the room to pull a plenum out the back after I pull these off. But I would not use a Phillips impact on these, because put them in your impact wrench, because you're going to strip them out. They're on are actually pretty tight. I would hand do these only. So I've come up with this, some of my uncle's tools, but back when Sears gave a crap and all their tools were American made, he has a set of these 1/4 inch ratchet box end wrenches. So I just set up a 1/4 inch one with a Phillips on there, and carefully I'm going to break it loose, and then you can zip it out. But don't use an impact on these to unscrew it. You'll just mess it up. You'll tear up the head. You don't want to do that. Okay, you've got to make all the room you can back here, and the ECM, all your controls are mounted up on that panel. And then you really need to pull a battery, not only for room but safety reasons, because I've spilt fuel in here. And if there was a spark from hitting the plenum on the battery, if there was a spark, you know, everything could catch on fire. But you really need to disconnect everything. These the ECM and all the controls on the plate, they easily come loose. They got 10mm bolts on there, and I'm impressed. I'm really impressed. I've never worked on one of these before, but man, you know, and I'm 6'2", 295, and I can get in here and get the stuff. I'm just really blown away, because like I said, I worked on a wave runner years ago and it was a flippin' nightmare. I'm blown away. I don't know how big a job it's gonna. I don't know if the plenum's going to come out or not. I just don't know. I hope so, because I really need to get that oil filter off. But anyway, this has all got to be pulled out, and it's got to be put down to make room for the intake. So that's where we're at. I have lost count how many times this happened, but that clamp on the air box, the socket is a 7 millimeter. You have to have an extension on your nut driver. Don't try any power tools. But I've lost how many times I took a tool like this and the extensions fell off. So I came up with this idea to put tape on there. So before you do this, put tape on this and put tape on you're gonna need a universal, 1/4 inch universal. You can't get in there without it, but put tape on there. If you drop it down the bottom of the ski, more than likely you're not going to get it back. So there's your tip for today. And again, it's 7 millimeter socket. Okay, this is really important. Everything has to be disconnected here. All the wiring harness, the fuel rails and everything. What's good about this is all the wiring harnesses are dedicated. So, you know, dedicated to one socket. So this really has to be all removed and pulled back away from the intake. I've got one wiring harness down there going through the throttle body sensor, and I can't really get to it. So what I'm going to do is when I pull the intake, I'll roll it around and disconnect it. I think it'd just be a lot easier because I can't see the tab. I tried a little pair of channel locks. I don't want to screw that wiring up, so let's leave that connected, and let's go ahead and pull this plenum. Holy crap, success. Success. I was right on those two sensors on the bottom of the throttle body. It's a lot easier. There's enough leeway in there. But there's actually two. It's a throttle position sensor, and I don't know what's this in it unless it's a oh shoot, it's on the top of my head. It has to do with the air, but anyway, let's go back around. I truly am shocked, because what Kawasaki did is they put the bolts on the upper plenum. Normally you have the upper bolts here, nuts, and then you have to get below the intake to get to the bolt, the other bolt, but they designed it so you could get to the bolts on top. From a technician, I am very, very impressed. I'm very impressed the way this thing's set up. Never worked on one of these, but I'll tell you what, this is one of the few designs that are made for the technician. Now, back to the oil filter. I want to explain the oil filter. I tried to get, I'm reaching down and grab it right now. As you can see, when the plenum's on, there's only about maybe this much of the oil filter exposed. And you have to get in there with a wrench and feel your way on top of it and get back on there. And then this socket come off and then flew off into the bottom of the boat. I tried those channel locks. I tried that other oil filter. But what has happened, and I see this a lot on boats and other vehicles, is they never get the oil changed, and the oil filter literally seizes onto the block with the moisture and the heat from the engine. And I explained to the customer, I says, if we don't pull this off, leave this oil filter on there, all the dirt, rust, and contaminants will go back into the motor and it'll destroy the motor. So it's just an absolute imperative that we get that oil filter off there and the new one on there and the oil changed on it, and then I can start putting it back together. So anyway, I'm blown away. I'm absolutely blown away how this ski is designed. I'm absolutely speechless. I just can't believe this manifold will come out. I mean, that just doesn't happen in the technician's world. I'm beyond happy right now. Now I just got to get that oil filter off. People, this is why you need to keep the maintenance up on your vehicles. Whether it be a sled or your boat or your car or something like this. I'm going to show you this. I got a wrench on this, and this is the original oil filter. It's just beyond seized. I'm pushing down on that pretty hard and it's not budging. People, take care of your stuff. I mean, if she hadn't brought this to me, all the dirt and contaminants would have kept going through the motor, took out the bearings, the cam, everything. You know, rust, moisture, especially on a ski that's out in the water. The contaminants inside this motor would just wipe it out. And if you got to replace this motor, you might as well just get rid of the ski. It's, you know, it's just not cost effective unless you put a used motor in there. But yeah, so what I'm going to do is just by chance, I got this old Wagoner heat gun off of eBay, and I'm not putting a torch down in there, no way. But I'm going to try to heat it up. Hopefully I can expand that joint and get that thing broke loose. I have gotten oil filters off with a punch. I want you guys to be with me when I take this off. Here's that piece of crap oil wrench that I got. Spent 2 days trying to find an oil wrench, and literally it's just bending. It's so cheap. You can see right there where it's bending. It won't even take any stress on it. So what I had to do, I had to get out the big guns and make absolutely sure there's an oil sending unit here. Before you get in here with any tools, remove the oil sending unit. You do not want to buy sensors. A lot of stuff's not available right now with shipments being gone, and you know, stuff not getting shipped through. You have to be really, really careful. You can't be a bull in a china shop. Okay, here we go. Here we go. You're right with me. Oh man, what a beautiful sight. Oh man, what a beautiful sight. Oh man, I am so glad to get that thing off. You don't know how glad I am to get that filter off. Oh man, that thing was on there tight. Oh, crud. I am one happy camper right now. So, anyway, we'll stay in touch and get the oil filter and oil in there now. And we'll start putting this thing back together tomorrow. I don't know if you can see this or not, but I'm cleaning this up. But if you see that black ring right there, hopefully it shows up in here. That black ring is the rubber seized to that surface from not being changed out from the factory. And that's what happens. You get moisture, heat, and it literally just, the oil filter literally just freezes to the surface. And you know, I had channel locks. I had those cheap freaking oil filter wrench. I spent 2 days trying to find an American-made oil wrench. Of course, you can't buy American-made anything anymore. And this is what it come down to. All because people didn't take care of it. We had this major job disassembling all this so I could get that oil filter out. So, but I wanted to have you see the black marks on there, and that's from the seal being seized on the side of the engine block. Okay, I'm getting ready. I got the gasket. I'm getting ready to put this thing back together. I'm not going to go through cleaning, you know, the flanges and all that, but I do want to cover something that's very important. When you're scraping gasket material, or you got a wire wheel or anything like that, grab a paper towel and shove it down the intake. You'll probably have to rip it to get it to fit down in there, because you want it below the surface so your drill or stuff doesn't catch it. But always plug your ports. You don't want all that crap going down in the motor. Dirt and gasket material stuff could damage the cylinder. So I'm not going to go through the cleaning process. Just wanted to give you an update. So it's the next following day. These are some properly plugged ports. If you look, they're below the surface. I mean, if you were to use a wire wheel or something like that, always grab your rag and jerk it out, but always make sure you put your plugs below the surface. But most of this is going to be scraped off. I might clean it up a little bit with a wire wheel. Okay, almost getting ready to post this video, and I thought, you know what? I should actually show the tools that I used on that oil filter to get it off. The one on the left, the smaller channel locks, that was the one I used when I had very little room in there, and that still would not break it off. After I removed the intake manifold, I had to use the huge channel locks on the right to actually break that oil filter loose. Seriously, I had to use the big channel locks. That's the only thing I could find to break that oil filter loose. I just thought I'd better show this before I post the video, and I'll put this on the end of the video. I hope you guys like the video. I've worked very hard for it, and I've learned a lot, and I know there's going to be a lot of mistakes, but you know, you got to try. Thanks.